decree that upon them right now in the name of Jesus. Father, I pray for the favor of God upon each life here. Each man, Lord, that has the favor of God, you smile upon them. You give them the blessings of God that is required as they raise their children and impart to their children. Father, I pray upon them the faith of God and faith in God, that, Father, they'll be able to impart that into their children, and they'll leave a legacy of faith, a faith-filled legacy of life. Success, Father, I decree success upon each one of them. They'll have successful individuals' lives, but they'll create children that will be extremely successful as well. Father, I pray peace upon them. Father, peace that passes understanding. It requires peace to raise children. Father, I decree that upon them, not anger, but they'll raise their children in peace, the peace of God that passes understanding. And Father, I pray upon them trust. Pray upon them trust, Father God, that they will have trust in you, trust in God, so that they can impart that to their children and they can raise godly children. I bless them in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. If you receive that, give the Lord a shout and a hand clap and be seated. Okay. We began a series, and the series is called Smile, Staying Positive, Win. And of course, the win is when negative things are happening in your life. God blesses us when we're positive. He does not and will not bless us when we're negative. He's not going to bless you when you're angry. He's not going to bless you when you're upset. He's not going to bless you when you're talking negatively about people. He's not going to bless you when you're losing your faith and you're turning your back on God and you're not living a faith-filled life. He's not going to bless you unless you're positive. So we've seen that, and we actually began this series on Mother's Day. And the Mother's Day title was Smile, Staying Positive, Win. You had a bad mom, a bad mother, right? So nothing really starts life off more negatively than having a bad mother, except maybe having a bad dad, right? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today, having a bad dad. Now, before I go into that direction and look at having a bad dad aspect of it, what I first want to do is I want to acknowledge you good dads. I want to commend you, and I thank you. You're leaving a faith legacy. You're leaving a legacy in your children. And I don't think any of us really recognize and understand what we have done and what we've had the opportunity to do. We are leaving a legacy in generations and generations and generations that's going to carry on a faith-filled life. And it takes a lot of work to do that. And great men, great fathers do great things in life, right? I feel like I've done some pretty astounding things, pretty great things, a lot of good things in my life. But of all the things that I've ever done in my life, nothing makes me smile more, nothing gives me a greater sense of accomplishment than when I look at my children. Not only our two children, but my son-in-law and my daughter-in-law and my 4 amazing grandchildren. See, I feel like I had a part of that. And I felt like, that's something that was accomplished. And that makes me feel like a good dad, And it's so good to be able to look at that and feel like that's what's happened. Well, in the scriptures, we find many fathers. Most of the men in the Bible were fathers. Most of them were. Sadly, so many of them were bad dads. They did not put forth the effort, the relentless effort that is required to being a good dad. It requires relentless effort to be a father. Even after your children have moved out, have their own homes, have their own children, it still requires a relentless effort. You just change gears, you change positions somewhat, but you still have to be a good or a great grandfather. So it requires a lot of relentless effort. But it can happen, and you can be a great father and a great grandfather. Now, I want to be a great grandfather, like Abraham or something, Judy got some kind of prophecy the other day that she's going to live to be 120, and she said, well, somebody's got to be here to take care of me, and I said, well, look, hey, hello, So, anyway, what we want to accomplish today is in our talk is about 7 different issues or 7 things I'm hoping, and some of them will stick with you. Number 1, if you have, right now, he's alive, you have a good, great father, then find a time and a point today where you tell him so. Tell him how he's ministered into your life and how he's helped you. Because the day is coming, as it has with me, when you won't be able to, when your father passes. So take the opportunity while you can. Now, number two, if he has passed today, then find a place where you thank God for him. See, for whatever reason, God gave you to him, for him to be your father. Take a time and thank God, because what happened, because he gave you to him to raise, is you've avoided so many things that others didn't. You have avoided the sufferings that even some of your friends didn't avoid because they didn't have the dad you had. Maybe you were not fortunate enough, number three, maybe you're not fortunate enough to have a good father, and there are voids in your life because of the lack of a father in your life. What I want to do today is I hope I can point out some of those things, the voids that maybe you have, and give you some assets that maybe you can fill those voids. Maybe you're a mom, and you're looking for, or want to be mom, and you're looking for a man who is going to be the father of your children. Well, what I want to do for you today is I want to give you some characteristics of a legitimate candidate that would be a good father, a great father for your children. Maybe you're a single mom. You're raising your children all alone. You're not really looking for a man. you had enough of them. You just want to raise your children. And so, but with no father, there's going to be some things they're going to miss that only a father is able to bring them. So I want to say some things today that maybe will help you amp up in certain areas where you can maybe fulfill and fill some of those places that are going to be delinquent because there's no father there. Maybe you're not a good father. Maybe you're a bad dad. You weren't raised with a good father. You missed what a good father can do and impart into you. What I want to do for you today is be able to give you some things that can cut out some of those bad places, and you can fill them in with what good fathers should do, and that'll help you become a good father. And then number 7, the thing for all of us, every male, whether you're this big or this big, hopefully we'll see things today that we need to have characteristics in our life of, especially us fathers who are already fathers, that we can maybe we can even grade ourselves and look at ourselves as to areas in our lives that we can even be a good dad, can become a great dad. And so those are the things that we're really going to be able to, I think, hopefully everybody will go out of here with some insight. Now, I ask you a question. What do you do with rotten, spoiled food? That's not a trick question. What do you do? Throw it away, right? Well, what do you do with rotten, spoiled children? You might want to throw them away, but you can't. But why are they rotten and spoiled? What is the primary reason that children are rotten and spoiled? Is it not because they have rotten, spoiled dads, bad dads? Primary reason that children are rotten and spoiled and rebellious is because they have bad dads. Bad dads. Now, here's what I want to really convey to us today, is that you've heard the statement, have you not? Oh, let me say this, because I really want to say this to us. One of the things that happens when you had a bad dad is that we feel like we missed the blessing that he was to bring to us in our lives, and we want to throw him away sometimes, but you can't. And here's what I'm wanting you to see. You see, he can still bless your life even if he's a bad dad. Here's what I'm getting at. In Deuteronomy chapter 5, it gives us a commandment, one of the commandments of God, and it's honor your father. Ephesians chapter 6, verses 1 and 2 says the same thing. Honor your father. Now see, this commandment comes with a promise. It's the only one that really does. It comes with a promise. And the promise is this: if you honor your father, then you will live long on the earth. That's good. And you will have a good life. Things will go well with you, even though you had a bad dad. You can reverse the thing. If you will do this one thing correctly, even though he was a bad dad, he can bless your life. Right? See, this is what I want you to see. And we confuse, don't we, honor and admiration. We think they're different. See, honor your dad because he's your dad, because he's your father. For whatever reason it was, God gave you to him for him to raise you, to be your father. Now, you honor that. You honor that's what God wanted, and so I'm going to honor that, right? But you don't admire the bad steps he's taken. You don't admire the bad things he's done. You've heard the statement, have you not? He's following in his father's footsteps, right? But you see, you don't have to follow in the bad footsteps. Both the girls and the guys, especially us guys, we follow in our father's footsteps. The older I get, the more I see I'm becoming like my father. And some of that's not really good. And, and somewhere along the way, what we get to do is we get to deviate from our father's footsteps in the bad. Now, following in the good is good, is well, but following in the bad is not good. It'll lead us to destruction and bad dads. Now, I had someone say this to me this year, actually. Or was it last year? Anyways, it wasn't that long ago. He said this, and I hope that every time I get to minister in a Father's Day message that I remember to communicate this. He said, because I had a bad dad doesn't mean I have to be a bad son. Because I had a bad father doesn't mean I have to be a bad son. Isn't that amazing? See, because why? Because you do it right. You honor him. You don't admire him, but you honor him. And what this does is what men here right now, looking at me, men right here in this room have deviated from following the steps of their father. They're now following the steps of Jesus. They have changed the course, and now they're leaving a legacy of faith for generations to come. Following the good steps is not a bad thing, but you don't want to follow the bad steps, the negative steps, and you want to deviate from that. You're following the steps of Jesus Christ now. And so many of you have done it, and you have broken that generational thing, that bad dad thing, that bad dad syndrome. You have broken it. And if you're a bad dad, you didn't have a good dad, I'm promising you, I'm telling you right now, you can break it. You can be a great dad. You can be a great dad. I was listening to a sermon by T.D. Jakes a while back, and what he did, and T.D., of course, he gets to minister to a special group of bad dads who had bad dads, and he's ministering to them to become great dads. And what he did is he took 5 characteristics, and what he said is this. He said that this is universal, that 5 characteristics that a good father, a great father, will have. These are the 5 characteristics. And so what I want to do today is I want to reverse that, and I want to look at these. These are characteristics that universally a bad dad does not have. This is what I want to bring it to us, and this is universally true. And you don't have to be deficient in all 5 of these. Just having 1 or 2 of these deficiencies in your life will cause you to be a bad, rotten dad with bad, rotten spots. And this is true universally, even if you're a man after God's own heart. See, King David, is remembered as, immortalized as, a man after God's own heart. And he did some great things, but he was a failed father. There's not many dads in the Bible more rotten than David. Though he was a man after God's own heart, though he had a real personal relationship with God himself, he never really passed that on to his children. So what I want to show you this as I work through our talk today, use David as our bad dad kind of guy. In 2 Samuel chapter 18 and verse 33, here's what it says. The king was shaken. Now in the Hebrew that is ragaz, and what it means is to quiver in violent emotions. He's quivering. This is the king. He's quivering in violent emotions, especially when you're angry or when you have fear. Why is the king quivering? Why is this happening to him? Why is he shaken so? He went up to the room over the gateway and wept. Why is David weeping? What's going on in his life? Take that down just a second. Let me fill you in. Let me set it up for you. What has happened is he has a son named Absalom. I'm going to be talking about him even more as we progress through this thing. Absalom has done a coup against his father. He's going to overthrow his father's throne. He's going to kill his father. This is what he's doing. He has driven David and his close friends out of Jerusalem. He's confiscated Jerusalem, and now there's going to be a war. There's going to be a battle between Absalom's army and David's army. This is a father-son deal going on here. All right. What's going to end up happening is that in this battle, David's army is going to be winning. Absalom is going to be running. He's going to be riding his mule. He's an arrogant man now. He was an arrogant kid. Now he's an arrogant man. He got this long hair. He's a spoiled man. And he gets it tangled in a tree as he goes under a tree. And he falls off of his mule, hanging there in a tree by his hair. And Joab, the general of David's army, drives javelins through Absalom's heart and kills him, David's son. Let me finish reading now. As he went, he said, "Oh, my son," he's quivering and he's shaking and he's crying, "Oh, my son Absalom, my son Absalom, if only I had died instead of you. Oh, Absalom, my son, my son." But David, Absalom is dead because of you. You are a rotten father. David, it's too late to cry now. David was a failed father. This was sort of the culmination of his failure as being a father. There's more to come, but this is sort of the culmination of what happened. David, as king, had 8 wives and a bunch of concubines. He had women all over the nation. He had 19 sons that are recorded. That's not counting the ones of his concubines. 1 daughter is recorded, but there's certainly more than that. He has a daughter, and his daughter's name is Tamar. Tamar's half-brother rapes her. David allowed it. I'll show you in just a second. Tamar then lives the rest of her life desolate as an old maid, beautiful woman, never has children, never gets married because of David's fathering. Amnon, who is Tamar's full brother, waits 2 years for David to do something about one brother raping her. He doesn't. David doesn't do anything. So Absalom has Amnon assassinated. David's brothers. David's household is so deficient. It's amazing. Then Absalom, as I've already mentioned, creates this coup against David. He tries to overthrow the throne and kill David. He's killed in the process. And then even after that, as David has set Solomon to be king that followed him, another brother tries to overthrow Solomon. And all of this is because David is a rotten father. And he's weeping and he's crying. And one day, Dad, you're going to weep. You're going to shake and you're going to quiver until you become a good father. Don't let it be too late. T.D. said this. See, when a man wants to wear the title of father, when he feels that he is worthy to wear a title of father, he'll correct the areas in his life where he's deficient. The rotten places need to be cut out. Jesus says, if your eye offends you, pluck it out. If your hand offends you, cut it off. You do surgery on yourself. So what I want to do is I want to look at these 5 characteristics. And I want us to kind of judge ourselves as we go through it. See where areas that we are maybe deficient. We need the spoon, or we need the hatchet or the knife to do some surgery on ourselves so that we can be great dads. Okay. So what's the first one? What's the first one I want to tell you? The first one I want to tell you about is you need to be a protector. A protector. A great dad is a protector. A bad dad does not protect his children well. He may install a burglar alarm in the house to protect his stuff, his possessions, which he feels like his children are, his wife is. He may install a burglar alarm to protect his stuff, but he doesn't protect his children from evil. Now, I could have said the devil, but what I'm talking about is evil. He doesn't protect his children from evil. And the way that a father initially and will protect his children is by asking critical questions, crucial questions. He'll ask questions like, who are you talking to? Who are you talking to so long? Where are you? What are you doing? Who are you with? Do I know them? Why don't I know them? Who are their parents? What do their parents do? What time are you going to be home? Let me see your cell phone. I want to see who you're spending all this time talking to. Let me read your text. I want to see what you're talking about. See, a bad dad doesn't have time for that because he's just protecting his stuff. He's not protecting his children. Now, a great dad will grate you. That is why he is great, because he grates on you. He angers you with his protection. He questions you with his protection. He drives you insane with his protection. And it's not because he's picking on you. It's because he's protecting you. Right? That's what we do. That's what great dads do. Now, Jesus in the upper room, just prior to his execution, crucifixion, he's praying for those God had given him. And I want to read this to you, and I want to use it as in fathering. John 17:9 says this, I pray for them. This is Jesus. I pray for them, speaking of his disciples. I am not praying for the world, but for those you have given me. Dads, I want you to know God has given you your children. They are his, and he's given them to you. This is exactly what Jesus says. Those you have given me, for they are yours. Then a little further down in verse 12, he says this, while I was with them, what did I do? I protected them. I kept them safe. Dads, that's what you do. That is a primary aspect of being a good father, is protecting your children. Then in the next chapter, Jesus says this, I have not lost one of those you gave me. See, your dad's not being mean to you. He's wired this way. Great dads are wired to protect you. One day, all of us dads are going to stand before God, and we need to be able to say, Lord, what you gave me, I protected. I haven't lost one of them, and I'm giving them back to you now. See, what a great dad will do in your life is he will protect you from people who want to harm you. He will protect you best he can from making mistakes. He will protect you from the devil or from evil best he can. He will protect you from yourself, your greatest enemy. See, and so if you have a dad who's alive, or if you had a dad who's passed and he was a great dad, then you experienced this. If you were not fortunate enough to have a great father, then there are voids in your life concerning this. You have void of protection. You don't feel like anybody cares about you and protect you. You have difficulty protecting others because you were never taught protection from your father. If you're a woman and you're looking for a man to be a father, a great father for your children, this is a quality he must have. If he doesn't have this quality, leave him alone. You don't want him. If you're a mother, a single mom trying to raise your children on your own, then what you've got to do, if you're not looking for a man, you've got to amp it up here. You've got to protect them like a mom does, but you've also got to amp up and protect them like a dad does. And if you miss this, you didn't have a good dad, and you're becoming a bad dad yourself, then this area must have surgery in your life. This is a bad spot. It's going to rotten you, and you need to cut it out and replace it with what is required to be a great dad. And then all of us, every single one of us, males in here, we need to evaluate ourselves. How do you score on this? If each 5 of these points that I'm going to be showing you today, if each 5 is worth 20 points, how did you score? Are you a protector? I want to talk about this one just a little bit more. I'm going to talk about this one more than I'm going to talk about the others. But I want to do it because David, as our example, was not a protector of his children. Reading this, I've already referenced it Then I want to show it to you and read it and develop it just a little bit more. In 2 Samuel 13:14, it says this, "But he, Amnon, refused to listen to her, Tamar, and since he was stronger than she, he raped her." David didn't protect his children. And the reason that he didn't is he didn't ask the questions. He was set up. See, Amnon had this buddy, Jonadab, and he was a cousin, and you got to watch out for cousins, but he was a cousin. So all of you have cousins, don't you? So he was his friend, though. And so Jonadab and Amnon got together because Amnon wanted Tamar physically. And it was his sister. So they contrived this plot. Get your dad to come. Tell your dad you're sick. And tell him you want Tamar to come cook for you. So they put this plot together, and David fell for it. David came to check out Amnon, and he agreed with it. He just let it go. David didn't ask the questions. He didn't ask the crucial questions, the protection questions. He didn't say, why do you need Tamar to come cook for you? All the people that can cook for you, and, you want Tamar to come? Why Tamar? Why do you want her? And let me feel your head. Let me see. Do you have a fever? You don't have a fever. You're not sick. And by the way, I don't like you hanging with Jonadab. I know he's your cousin, but I don't think he's good for you. Why? Because David didn't protect his children. David didn't know his children as well, like he should. And so he didn't protect Tamar from Amnon, and he didn't protect Amnon from Jonadab or from Amnon himself. See, they were just following in their father's footsteps. David wanted Bathsheba, so he took her. Amnon wanted Tamar, so he took her. See, we got to somewhere along the way deviate from the Father's footsteps. Somewhere along the way, we've got to make the call. I'm not going in that direction. See, David was a rotten dad. That's number one. He's a protector. Number two, he's a provider. Now, a bad dad does not provide well. Hear how I'm saying it, does not provide well for his children. And I'm not talking monetary provision. I'm not talking about buying them things and giving them stuff. That's about the worst thing you can do. That's what David did with his children. See, what David gave his children, he gave them everything they wanted. It talks about Absalom, how he had horses and chariots and he had men running with him. Here comes Absalom. Absalom was a spoiled, rotten brat who became a spoiled, rotten father, a man, because his father was spoiled and rotten. And so what does Absalom do? Well, he creates a revolt. He gets away with murder. His father's the king. He can do anything he wants to. His dad will get him out of it. He got away with murder, literally. Then he created this coup to overthrow his own father. Thousands of men died because David did not father and provide correctly for his children. Thousands of people, and Absalom ends up dying because David did not provide well. He just gave him everything he wanted. Let me tell you something, parents. You are not doing your children favors by spoiling them. The way they'll repay you is by rebelling against you. They will kill you spiritually. They will devastate your life. When I'm talking about a father who provides well for his children, I'm talking about a father who can provide wisdom for their children, godly wisdom, not wisdom of the world, but how to have wisdom, how to maneuver life wisely. I'm talking about a father who gives great counsel, godly counsel, who can provide counsel for his children. I'm talking about a father who can provide perspective. What is really, really, really important in life? Because so many times we fathers have a tendency to get away from what's really, really important and emphasize something that's not. We lose our priorities. A good father, a father who provides well, will give a priorities, an order, the things that need to be done first in life. But the primary thing a great father will do is provide himself for his children. There is nothing you can provide for your children like you. That's what you need to provide for your children. See, we men, all of us, created by God, we're created to be good fathers. We're created to be givers physically. We are created to give physically, not to receive, but to give. So what we do is we give. We provide for our children, but we provide the correct things. And when you look back, you had a great dad, you look back at your life, you see that he did that. And your life is far better because he provided the right things for you. Your life is better because he was in it and he was your dad. The second thing, third thing that we want to talk about, what is the third thing that a great dad does, is he's a promoter. He promotes. He promotes his children. He doesn't promote himself. A bad dad promotes himself. He develops himself rather than developing and promoting his children. Let me say it this way. See, what a great dad does is promote his children prior to promoting himself. What I mean by that is because you have been a provider for your children, you have given them yourself, you know your children. And you're able to pick up on specific talents and abilities and giftings of God that they have inherent inside of them. You can see these things happening. You can see them being especially talented at specific things that they do. They have these unique talents that other children don't have, and you're picking up on this, and you can begin to develop that. You can begin to encourage them in that. You can begin to give them lessons on that or provide lessons for them on that. But you pick up on these specific things that they're able to do, God-given talents. Listen, they will never be fulfilled until they develop their God-given talents, and Dad, that's something you can do. See, I was 28 years old before I finally figured out what I wanted to do with my life. 28 years old. Now, I did well. Everything I touched, I put my hand to, I prospered. I did well in life. I made good money. I did okay. But I wasn't fulfilled. So after I made the decision to go into the ministry, after the fact, my parents told me, well, Double Ray, you always like to watch preachers on television. I said, I did. They said, yeah, when you were a little boy, you would sit on the couch on Sunday and watch preachers, Oral Roberts, Billy Graham. You sat there. You didn't go out and play. You watched the television preachers. See, here's my point. My point is they could have helped me more. Had they picked up on that, had they picked up on there's something different, there's something unique here. That's not natural. A kid that size, he's supposed to be out playing. He's not supposed to be watching television preachers. They could have helped me more. Maybe they could have got me. I've done pretty good at what I've done. I'm a pretty good preacher, teacher, right? I hope. I'm really not asking amen there. I'm just making a point. I do pretty good there. I do pretty good there. But what could I have been? What could I have accomplished had my parents just helped me just a little bit more? And what's so interesting there is we never read all the chapters and chapters that record about David, 1 Samuel, 2 Samuel, 1 Chronicles, 2 Samuel, all the things that are written about David, not one time are we given a story where he spent time with his children. Not one time did he ever encourage and develop them to become all they could become. He never gave them himself. He never was a provider. What's the fourth thing? Oh, let me say one more thing here before I go to 4. One more thing here. You see, Father, you believing in your child. You encouraging your child. You recognizing a talent that child has is special. It's good when mom does it, but when you do it. Because you see, what a father, a bad dad does is promotes himself and doesn't promote the child's self-confidence and self-worth. But when you recognize it, when you identify a talent that a child has and you begin to develop that and recognize that and believe in that child, you develop that child's self-worth and self-confidence. They can become something. They can become great. All right, now, number 4. 4 is it becomes a priest. Your father has to be a priest of the home. A bad dad is not. Now, I'll work on this. This one is the one that kind of surprised me the most. See, a bad dad cares nothing about spiritual matters. A bad dad, actually, church and those kinds of things are just a nuisance to a bad dad. Let mama do it. Let their mother take care of that. That's kind of effeminate or something. I don't want anything to do with that. I'm a man, And the whole time, what you're doing by doing that is you're devastating the souls of your children to whom God has given you to protect. A great dad, a great father is the priest. Now, what I mean by priest, what a priest is someone who leads correct worship. Who leads worship, makes sure that the family goes to worship. Make sure that God is worshiped in spirit and truth, that the worship is real, legitimate worship. That's what I'm really after here and wanting you to see. And what a great dad does is he makes sure that this takes place and this happens with his children. He will impart into his children. A bad dad does not instill into his children the things of God. Now, we see this inherently in David all the time. David was a bad dad, and in this, I thought that this would be where David shined. As I was preparing the lesson, I thought this is going to be where David, he excelled. Because, he's a man after God's own heart. He had this personal relationship with God himself. He wrote most of the Psalms. Surely David would have done well here, but as I studied it and I looked at it, what I found out is David was as deficient here, maybe even more so than he was anywhere else. Now, he had a personal relationship with God, but he never imparted it to his children. We have this interesting story about David, and I always taught it in a wrong way or a different way that I'm about to do it. What had happened is David wanted to bring the Ark of the Covenant of the Lord of the whole earth back into Jerusalem for the first time. But he wanted to bring it. It had been taken by the Philistines. They had gotten it back. It was a man at a man's name who was Obed-Edom. David was going to go get it. God was going to make him wait, not build the temple. He had to put it in a tabernacle, the tabernacle of David. Anyway, David went to get it. Now he's bringing it into Jerusalem, the city of David. Now let me read this to you. In 2 Samuel 6:16. The ark of the Lord was entering the city of David, that's Jerusalem. Michal, daughter of Saul, now Michal was David's first wife, now she's just one of 8. Michal, daughter of Saul, watched from a window. Now I always preach this, that Michal's on the wrong side of the window. Why isn't she down there with David, worshiping God, praising God? Okay, well, why wasn't she? And when she saw David leaping and dancing before the Lord, she what? She despised him in her heart. Wow. Why? All he's doing is praising God. Read a little bit further down, she says, "Oh, how glorious was the king today, out dancing before the maids." Now, why? We were down with Lance this past week, and Lance was ministering, and he read he was using David in pride, and pride was his topic, and he read the scripture about David. David had come to the battlefield, and that's where he encountered Goliath, and so his older brother Elihu comes to David, and he says to David, "We know why you're here. You're here because of the pride and the deceit of your heart." And I've always blasted Elihu because this is David. This is the man after God's own heart. This is David you're talking to, Elihu. He's the anointed king. But you know what? Something hit me while I was listening to Lance. We, after the service, went back and talked about it, and he started using it. But here's the point that hit me. See, family knows you. You can fool people. You can't fool family. Michal knew David. He's out there jumping around praising God, but she knew him. You want me here? You come into town leaping and praising God before all the maids. You just come doing your thing. And I know, David, you got 8 wives. You got 8 of us. And you got all these concubines all over the country. There's no telling how many kids you got. You don't run your family. You don't minister to your family. I know you. And you want me to worship with you? No way. I don't know how she does it. She knows me. I don't know how my daughter and my son does it. They know me. And they knew David. And she despised him in her heart. See, they thought David was just a hypocrite. Oh, he had this amazing relationship with God himself. but he never imparted that into his children. He was not the priest of his home. The only child that even came close to following in David's footsteps was Solomon. And we know how he ended up. He followed in his father's footsteps. He did, remember? 300 wives, 700 concubines, children all over the place. And in the scripture that says that, it says his wives turned him from the Lord. Listen, he was such a weak leader when it came to being a priest of his home. His wives turned him from the Lord. It was David, not the priest of his home. Let me finish up the fourth one real quickly. Now, and let me add this before I go on. It does not. When I'm saying be the priest and the spiritual, leader of your home kind of thing, it's making sure there's worship, there's right worship, there's pure worship. It's making sure your family worships together. David never, all the stories we've got of him, he never took his family to worship together. I don't mean that you've got to lead the evening Bible study in your living room. I'm not talking about that. I'm not talking about you got to be able to quote more scriptures than Mama does. That's not what I'm saying. But you got to be a man of faith. You got to be a priest and a leader in spiritual things in your home. All right, now, the last one, number five. Number five, what is he? The last one is he has to be a prophet. He has to be the prophet of his home. Now, what I'm talking about is not foretelling the future, but I'm talking about just speaking into the lives of your children. All right. Now, a bad dad doesn't do that. A bad dad, they don't want to hear what you got to say, period. But we've had prophets here, and legitimate prophets, and people are drooling. Give me a word, give me a word. And when you're a good father, they want to hear what you got to say. But a bad dad, he doesn't care about those kinds of things. It was either last year or the year before last, I ministered from this particular perspective. I talked about irrevocable blessings with polished words. And what we do is we polish words and we dispense those. We put those into our children, and they're irrevocable. What happened is Isaac had two children, Jacob and Esau. Esau was the oldest, and Jacob. Now, Rebekah's favorite, the mother, her favorite was Jacob, and Isaac's favorite was Esau. When it came time to give them the blessings, the inherited blessings that they were to get from the father, Isaac wanted to give it to Esau. And he told him, he says, go get some venison. He was a hunter. He was a hairy man, it says. Go get some venison, bring it back, cook it, bring it to me, and I'll bless you. I'll give you the blessing. And then, so he goes, Esau goes, and then while he's gone, his mother, Rebekah, hears what he said to, what Isaac said to Esau, and she tells Jacob, because she wanted Jacob to have the blessing, she says, you go kill some goats, and then put some hair on you, and we'll give him the goats, and we'll fool him. And it worked. They did. Esau comes back. He goes in to get his blessing. His dad says, I've already given it to you. He said, no, you didn't. They figured out it was Jacob. They both weep and they cry. Esau says, take it back and give it to me. Here's the thing I want you to see. Isaac says, I can't. Once it's given, it's irrevocable. Dad, you have that power. You have that power to polish your words, dispense them into your children, speak into their destinies, speak into their futures. You're not speaking the future. You're speaking into your child to create a future. You're speaking into them to leave a legacy. You're speaking into them the things, and they cannot be revoked. They're irrevocable. That's your power. So if you had a dad, and you have a dad, then you go today and thank him. If he's alive, go and thank him, because there's a day coming when you can't. If you had one, he was a good dad, you find a time and thank God for him, because you avoided so many sufferings that other people didn't. If you were unfortunate enough not to have a great father, a good father, if you missed out on that, there are voids in your life because you didn't have one. Hopefully today I've touched on some of those voids in those areas that maybe I've given you some substance that you can fill those voids with. If you're a mom and you want a good husband to raise your children, then I'm hoping I've given you 5 areas, 5 characteristics. If you get a man with these 5 characteristics, you got a good man, and you're going to have a good husband, and you're going to have a great father. If you're a mom, a single mom raising these children, I'm hoping I've given you some areas where you need to amp up, and you need to fulfill some of those things that dad is not there to do. And if you are a bad dad and you never were taught these things, then please do some surgery. pluck some things out, cut some things off, heal, and become a great dad. And all of us, every male in here, should evaluate ourselves. I don't want to be just a good dad. I don't want a single spot rotten on me. I want to be a great dad. And I want you to know you can break that generational bad dad syndrome. You can change the destiny and the legacy that you're going to be leaving. Let's pray.